Welcome to the Ronni Resonance Podcast, a space for women in transition, becoming, and rebirth. I'm Ronni, an intuitive guide, mentor, and multi-dimensional human learning right alongside you. Here we explore identity shifts, intuition, alignment, purpose, and the deeper truths you've been feeling but maybe haven't said out loud yet. This is where you return to yourself, gently, honestly, and with resonance. Take a breath. You're exactly where you're meant to be. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Ronni Resonance Podcast. This month, inside the Becoming Sanctuary, our theme is about embodiment and becoming. And today I want to talk about what actually starts changing when you stop forcing your life and actually start embodying your real truth. Because I think a lot of people assume alignment means that your whole life suddenly becomes perfect overnight. Like suddenly your finances are fixed, your relationships are healed, your anxiety disappears, your purpose becomes just completely obvious to you, and your external life instantly reflects the internal work that you've been doing. But honestly, I don't think that's how embodiment necessarily works. I think that the first things that change are really your peace, your nervous system, your self trust, discernment, your boundaries, and your ability to stop abandoning yourself. And those internal shifts slowly start changing your outer world. So today, I want to talk about what changed when I stopped forcing and why my peace became evidence before money or any financial anything did, how relationships started shifting, and why authenticity started feeling better than performance. Before we get started, everyone joining will stay muted and cameras will stay off just to keep the space easy to move through. But feel free to use the chat throughout the episode if something resonates with you or if you have questions or thoughts. Just drop that in the chat. All right, let's get into this. So, I think one of the first signs that my life was changing wasn't external success, it was really peace. So, really peace that um I don't know, I started to feel like, okay, it's so weird. I think we tell ourselves like, "Oh, we're going to have peace once we get to this point," right? Like we always think, "Oh, it's within reach, but we got to get there." But I think what was shocking for me is that sure, I realized things in my life had to change because I wasn't maybe at a financial point that I wanted to be, or I just wasn't where I wanted to be in general, and the things that I wanted in my life. But as I started to change internally, I started to notice this amazing amount of peace in my life. And I'm like, I don't even have all this money. I don't have all these things. And yet I'm still experiencing peace. And so for me, that was a big thing where I was like, oh, okay, things are really changing with me. So, I'm still rebuilding things financially. I stopped one thing, my business, the way I was running it, and I'm completely changing it. And so I am like in a rebuilding process at the moment. So, there's this restructuring around my life and my business, and so this external uncertainty really does still exist in my life. Internally, things really have shifted dramatically for me. Like my nervous system is calmer. Maybe I have like less panic around uncertainty, where it's like, before, I think I talked about this last episode, but like before, where I'd be like, oh, I'm not making money, I better do something that's going to help me make money, right? And so now I'm like, no, how can I just be more intentional and show up and build relationships online, and not necessarily worry about what other people think, but also not worry about what I'm posting and what I'm going to get from that. If that's going to make me money, if that's going to get a booking, if that's going to get whatever. And so I've just completely taken out any of the worry or panic. So there's just this more trust in myself and having the realization that I can't control everything. And like I mentioned last time, life is happening for me instead of to me, is how I have started to realize all of this. And I've just been asking more like, what are these situations teaching me? I'm not going to sit here and get upset about it. Or if I do get upset, I'm like, okay, but what is that mirroring to me? What is the trigger within me that I need to understand, like what this person, is mirroring to me, that I should also be working on. So, my aligned choices of not engaging in certain things or whatever, I think is what slowly has changed my perspective. So, realizing that I have more control in my choices and that I have control over my life and strengthening my inner authority, that truly has changed my perspective, where I'm like, oh, we've been living in this illusion this whole time. And that the one thing I do have control over is my own peace and my happiness. I don't need to wait or want external things in order to give that to me. I think it first starts within. And I think that's what I'm realizing, is that the more that I work on myself and I expand my peace and expand my light and expand just myself and just, I think that I'm really going to see my external world. I already am seeing it change, but it's going to change more and more and more the more that I have this shift in consciousness, I guess. So I just have more of this emotional regulation. Like I'm not, I don't know. It's improving. I also think it's just the environments I'm in. That's the external that's changed. It's like I'm just not really going and doing things that I know is going to like bother me, I guess. So, but I will say I have an increased optimism even during like uncertainty. Like I said earlier, like, I may not have it all figured out, but it's like I'm still good. Like I can hold myself at the end of the day and trust that, you know, what is it? Like long and steady wins the race. Oh my God. Anyway, so I think that that's something that I've realized is like, I realize that things are going to come to me when they're supposed to come to me. And so it's like, instead of trying to predict or just create certainty by just doing something, I've just realized that like I'm going to be more positive about the situation and like what that actually, why I'm in an uncertainty, and trusting through the uncertainty, I guess, that everything's going to go the way it needs to go. And so the other thing I've realized is like when you stop forcing your life, you really start noticing what was only surviving because you were carrying it, right? Like last time I even said, like, part of the grief that you have with leaving something is probably why you held on for so long, because you weren't surviving, thinking that's what you're supposed to be doing. But really you were carrying a burden, carrying something really heavy. One of the things that I think I've noticed is in relationships, when you get to a point where you're like, okay, I don't have to continue to hold the emotional weight for these people, or I feel like I'm giving a lot and I feel like I'm not receiving. And then it's like, I made the conscious decision to pull back from some relationships and just see what happens when that happens. And those relationships have completely fizzled out. Or I've started to notice, as I've gotten more aware of things, I've started to see a little more clearly people's intentions and just who they are under the surface. And so that's been a little tricky because, there's the one hand where it's like people just kind of like, you do kind of feel hurt initially when you realize that people are not, following up or trying to reach out or trying to nurture this relationship. But then there's this quiet peace and confidence I have with it, where I'm like, oh, okay, well, that just told me what I needed to know. Like, I didn't know if we had a close or good relationship. And now I know that this is not, great. And so then there's the other thing where it's like, with relationships too, like when you get to a certain awareness, you start to realize that like you're seeing things you didn't see before about certain people. So like, I have somebody that I've known since kindergarten, and like she showed her true colors over this last year. And, maybe I would have reacted differently in the past, and I would have been like, oh, it's okay, but I just kind of realized like, oh no, that was kind of what I guess I needed. I needed to kind of go through something really shitty in order to understand that this person is just not my person. So, that can be rough as far as like the how some of the external changes without you realizing. It's like you change and then things around you start to change. But yeah, like I've just stopped, like no longer emotionally carrying everybody in my life. I definitely have always had like this hyper awareness of unspoken expectations. And that's something confusing, I think, for people sometimes, because they think that I don't know. Like I intuitively know things. And so it's almost like they think that when I bring it up to them, like, oh, I feel like you think this, then they're defensive. And you're like, oh, well, okay, obviously I picked up on that correctly. But as far as the unspoken expectations, like that's what's hard, is like knowing that people have these unspoken expectations for me. And I know that, but I also am not trying to give into it, I guess. Like I'm aware of it, but I also before would try to like meet those. Like I would try to like intuitively know what people want from me and then try to deliver and try to be what they want me to be. When now I'm like, oh no, I see it. And I also think it's kind of shitty that you have these expectations that you're not communicating to me, that I'm supposed to just pick up. And then when I bring it to your attention that I feel like this or know this, you get defensive and say, well, no, that's not it at all. And, so that's the kind of thing where I'm just like letting it go. Like, unless you come to me and you tell me, hey, I don't like that you did this, or I wish that you would do this, or whatever, like, it's not mine. Like, that is yours. And that I shouldn't have to take something on just because I know and you're not talking about it. So, that's another thing that I feel like has changed. And, um, you know, another thing with intuitively picking up on things, aside from unspoken expectation, is like the tension and judgment coming from people. And that's something where I used to get really worked up about it and feel really bad about myself and think, oh, they think this way about me and whatever, because I would just know. And it wouldn't always be in a direct action towards me, or wouldn't be in an obvious thing. And I think a lot of people think that, like, if I'm not obviously mean or rude to this person, then, or if I don't directly say you're a bitch or fuck you or whatever, then I'm a good person. But then there's still like, there's comments, there's passive aggressive stuff, there's things like that, um, that's a little more obvious, but there's even just the energy that I'm reading and I'm getting. That's the thing that's changing in my external, I would say, is just that um I really, I guess it'd be internal, but I am definitely feeling more of this like energy, like more than I ever have, of like almost knowing exactly what that energy is and what I'm feeling. And so that's something that before I would have felt that and I would have really like gotten down on myself and thought, oh my God, like they feel this way about me. And then wouldn't ask or whatever. And so I've gotten to the point, again, like I said, with the unspoken expectations, unless this person comes to me and says something, like whatever it is in that moment, if I pick up as like their energy's not good or whatever, I don't necessarily have to engage with that and play into that or whatever. I just simply ignore it. And I don't take that on as my own emotion, because a lot of the time I think what judgment is coming from insecurity. And when I talk about people being on their own journeys, it's like that's the thing I have to understand, is that this again is saying more about them than it's saying about me, and that it's not mine to carry. And it's not everything. I'm realizing that not everything is mine to hold, I guess. So, I think my relationships, I've distanced myself from draining relationships. And so obviously, like I said in last episode, your grief and relief can exist together. There is this feeling of like um trying to express your love for these particular people, and feeling like it didn't matter how much you gave, it didn't matter. And so you realize it's time to stop forcing this closeness or forcing this relationship or whatever. And then you realize kind of like what that burden was that you were carrying when it came to that relationship, where you were like, oh, I was putting in so much more work. I was putting in so much more care and love and all the things. And so then there's this like relief where it's like, oh, you mean like I don't have to have anxiety around this person trying to get them to respect me or to care about me or to not hold grudges against me or whatever it is that they have. um that's something that I've really been also surprised by, is just like the relief I feel by like not forcing myself to like try so hard to get these people to um just respect me or whatever. I think a lot of the time, like I've given so much of my emotional whatever to people, and I'm kind of like the buffer, the person who can kind of see all sides or resonate with you or let you vent and give you my opinion and all the things. But um I think I've realized as a projector, it's really about the invitation and taking the right invitations. And I think that, if somebody is inviting me for my insight, I'll give it, but I'm more discerning on whether it's worth it or not. And I think I have a little bit of relief realizing that, like, I don't have to engage with everything. I don't have to. Like I can hold space for you and what you're going through with somebody else or in your situation, but I don't necessarily have to fix it for you, or I don't have to um, be your emotional anchor. And so that I think has made people fall away naturally. Some relations have deepened naturally. There was even a moment when I first had this change in the fall where with my friends, I was like, I thought I almost had to like question every relationship because I really was at that time. I was like, what am I doing? And who do these people really love me? And like, do we really have all of these things in common, or are we just friends because we've known each other all these years? Like, what is so I by expressing those concerns, it really did start to deepen some relationships because I think people started to realize that, hadn't expressed some of these things and I had been holding a lot of emotional depth for people, and that I am deep. And sometimes I need people to be deep with me, as uncomfortable as it is. And so that was the conversation I was having, was like, are we on the same wavelength? Like, am I too deep for this? Am I too much for you or whatever? And so by finally expressing that with people that I feel comfortable expressing it with, they listened. But there's people that I don't feel comfortable expressing things with because I know that there will be defensiveness, there will be pointing fingers, there will be scorekeeping, like tallies of like all the times I did X, Y, and Z. So it's just like not worth it to me. But I'm not resentful towards those people. I genuinely am like, okay, they're going through what they're going through. But like that again has nothing to do with me. And I can't get you to see my point. And I think that's why I'm really showing up online talking about these things, because it's not just it's for everybody, it's for the people that are close to me that want to know how I feel. And I'm expressing it in a grounded way online. I'm not trying to expose anybody. I'm just trying to um you know like I'm trying to resonate with people. I know other people are in the same boat as me. So I think my audience online is really starting to shift because of that, because people are starting to be like, okay, like this is what I've been feeling and nobody around me wants to talk about it, or everybody is too scared to go there or go deep, or maybe people feel vulnerable to talk about how they're feeling with their family. They feel judged by their friends. I mean, God, there's so many things, and that's literally where I was. And that's the other reason why your external doesn't change, because you're literally always concerned about the external and what's going to happen if you decide to do something that just feels better to you. And I think that is the uncertainty, that people have. But what I've realized through showing up online, I think that people feel safer around authenticity. And I think that that's something that I hope that will get people to start to want to express these things and talk about these things online and feel safe to do that. And so I think by me showing up like this, I hope that it's helpful to people. But I think right now I'm at a place in my life when it comes to people in general, not just like people online, but family, friends, everything, all my acquaintances in my life. I've really just decided to start watering what waters me, and just being very intentional with my energy. because I think people used to get unlimited access to me. Like if they need something to text or whatever, I would feel like, are they going to be upset with me, or am I going to be a shitty person if I don't sit here and listen to them and give them advice and help them through this concern? And then it's hilarious to me because nobody does that for me. And that was the biggest thing of like seeing how people react when you stop giving certain things. And so that I think this is all I think been some of the biggest things when it comes to just my identity shift and this transformation that I'm in, is just that it's showing me where my energy is aligned and who it's aligned with. And I think that is a huge thing for people to understand in their life, because we all are energy. And I think we are impacted by other humans far more than other things in the world. Humans can be really amazing and they can also be horrible. And so I think that when you start to go through this internal shift, you become aware of things, and then you start to like change internally. And so as you do that and you start making more aligned decisions, that's why those things change, like your friends, dynamics, places, your job, things like that. They start to change because it just can't stay the same way. It becomes too loud for you to just stay in it, I guess. And you start to realize there's just too many things that you can't unsee. Like you become aware to too much. And so it's like, that's why these things start to have to change, because it'll drive you crazy. And so that's why the biggest thing is, what I always say, is like going back to work on yourself. So when we talk about working on ourselves, and when we talk about trying to align with our higher self, I think embodiment is something that can be confusing to people. Because I think what I realized about embodiment is that embodying your truth is not always some huge dramatic thing. Really, sometimes it could just be making the next honest choice for yourself. So that could be saying no without feeling guilt, resting without shame, not forcing productivity, listening to your body cues when you go anywhere, when you're around people, places, things, whatever, slowing down, noticing the dread that you're feeling around certain environments as information, pausing things when they feel forced, choosing honesty over just proving yourself constantly, not abandoning myself as quickly also has been a huge thing for me. And a lot of the time, the way I handle that is grounding before I just react to something, because I used to just react. And reacting doesn't give me time to hold space for myself, go into my heart chakra, and really try to find the love and compassion, the lesson, the mirroring, and all of those things that could be happening in this moment before I say something that I can't come back from, or just act in a way that is not aligned with my highest self. And I think the other thing too is trying to move from alignment instead of pressure, and like going through my days as far as like when I wake up and what I do throughout the day and all of that. It has nothing to do with like, oh my God, I have to get this post out today, or oh my God, I have to do this so that I can try to get a booking, or, it's just like, what is the strategy? I'm going to make this video. I'm going to put out some clips. I get an idea randomly in my head for a video, I might make it, that intuitively came to me. And so I feel like, okay, that makes sense. It feels like something I should do. So then I do it. I don't give myself a ton of rigid lists and, things like that, because I know my ADHD just won't like that. My embodiment, I think, has just been happening through small choices daily of like finding a way to move my body, finding a way to get my thoughts onto paper, finding a way to connect with my intuition, finding a way to connect with the people that I want to connect with, and align to these to different things, So it's really, like I said, like these small micro alignments, micro intentions you set for your day, but they make a huge difference. And I know I talked a little bit about this last time, but honestly, I feel like authenticity started feeling better than performance anyway. Like um, I'm not overly trying because I'm literally just going with the flow every day and like listening to my body, listening to my intuition and the universe. And so for a long time, I was exhausted from perfection, right? I think a lot of us think that to embody our higher self, we have to be perfect. And I gave up the feeling of needing that. And I just decided that I'm going to kind of deconstruct a little bit. I was very exhausted from being in the beauty industry and feeling polished online, and just the pressure to look a certain way or to fit in a box, and just like needing to constantly look like I'm on the next trend, and I've got all this stuff. But I think that I realized that it never felt aligned to me. It never felt right to me. And so, really, like stripping down my look and wearing less makeup and having a softer appearance, and maybe choosing comfort over look like wearing something that I it's going to be restricting and like piss me off. I just I think the biggest thing is just like your alignment is not necessarily going to be aesthetic. Okay. Like it doesn't, especially in the beginning stages of finding alignment, it's rocky. You have like the messy middle that I've talked about. You have to integrate into this new version of yourself. And so alignment is not always again, it's not perfect and it's not going to look pretty all the time. And it's just whatever's true to you on that day. So your authenticity also is not necessarily, um, your branding, right? Like authenticity, your branding can be like, oh, I'm projecting this thing as my brand, but who you are on a soul level isn't necessarily a brand. It's just who you are. So I think that's the thing is like separating, like, I think we feel like we have to like have this brand and like it's all about marketing and all these things. But I think sometimes people just want you to show up as yourself, and to not feel like you're constantly pushing a look, a thing, a whatever. I think people are burnt out on that and not connecting with that. They want to connect with who you are. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of people come online who are new estheticians, or I'm just using that as an example, like beauty professionals, um, spiritual people, whatever. People getting mad, feeling like this is performance. This is not actually um, who you are. Or with specifically spirituality, I think there's a lot of people who get mad when they see somebody go online and they don't follow certain spiritual practices to a T or whatever. I think the biggest thing is just to show up honestly instead of perfectly. I think when it comes to anything, like whatever you're changing in your life, I think it's important to just simply show up where you're at, be okay with, you know, being in the learning stages um, of your new thing or your journey, because I think that that's where your growth and learning can happen. I think most of us are meant to learn through experience. And so, if you've got somebody online who is like, you didn't do this right or whatever, like, I think that's why people are afraid to show up online, specifically myself, because there's so many online warriors trying to say X, Y, and Z, what you should be doing, what you're not doing enough, what you're doing wrong, whatever. Um, to me, I think it's just more important about trying to show up as your best self and just showing up as honestly as you can. And again, it does not have to be perfect. And, you also don't have to take on the feeling that the person criticizing you on that post, they're on whatever journey, they're feeling inadequate somewhere in their spiritual journey, and they want others to feel that when they spot something that they think is wrong or whatever. So it's truly about always staying true to yourself. That's what highest self is. It's just like, what would, if I were going to choose in alignment right now, what is the choice? What feels good, what doesn't feel good? So the other thing I want to point out, the highest self, it's not hierarchy. Everybody's on their different journeys. Like I've said that a million times, but it's very important to say. And that's where you have all these people come out and they want to say things all the time because they think they're here and you're here or whatever. And that's not true. So embodiment is not perfection. And I think that trying really matters more than perfection. Okay. So honestly, I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned lately is that the outer life may not immediately become perfect when you stop forcing the old life, but your relationship with yourself really starts changing first. And I think that's the biggest point that I'm trying to make is that yes, changing yourself will change your external. There will be not great things, there will be amazing things, but you'll see that even when the not so great things happen, when the certain people fall off, when the certain whatever, you're already kind of at this peace with yourself. And you just know that, again, this told me what I needed to know. This is information, whether I felt it in my body, whether it was a boundary I set with somebody and how they responded, whether that was just anything, like everything is information. It's important to not abandon yourself and actually listen to what you're trying to tell yourself. So I think that's really, yeah, when your relationship changes, that's when your relationship with yourself changes, that's when everything else I think changes in your life. Because when you stop abandoning yourself, like I said, your nervous system changes, your boundaries, your relationships, your discernment changes, your energy changes, and eventually your outer life really starts responding to that too. And like I said, it can be uncomfortable, but it's important that what I've learned through that is that even though it's uncomfortable, I still have more peace doing this than I did just staying in these dynamics. So, inside the extended episode, I want to go much deeper. We're going to be talking about honoring ADHD and anxiety, depression, all of that instead of fighting it, spirituality and visibility online, synchronicities and divine timing, cycle breaking and lineage patterns, trusting your downloads and your intuition, having discernment with different opportunities that come to you. Healing, it's not linear. So we're going to talk about that and what embodiment actually looks like when in real life when you stop trying to perform healing and start genuinely living it. So if you are a premium or VIP member inside the Becoming Sanctuary, go ahead and head over to the extended classroom now and join me there live. And if you're watching this later on YouTube, the extended episode and this week's embodiment tools are now available inside the Becoming Sanctuary, which I will go ahead and link that in the description below. Thank you guys for being here, and I will see you in the next week's episode, or I'll see you in the extended episode.